We are in this odd liturgical time that is both a season and not a season. The green of these Sundays is the same as the summer Sundays, and yet these Sundays after Epiphany at one end lead to the Sunday just before Ash Wednesday, when we read the gospel story of the Transfiguration at the other end. And so while these are the same green Sundays as the summer, those readings at either end are meant to draw our attention to the stories we hear in the middle in terms of an epiphany. And part of what these Sundays do is invite us to think about what do we need to do in order to have a manifestation, a realization, a revealing, be it gradual or sudden, of God in our lives. What do we need to do, or what might we do to open ourselves to an epiphany? The readings that we have today give us one answer. Not the only answer, but one that is certainly most interesting. Uzziah was king of Judah for 52 years. He was the longest reigning king of Judah. There were people in Judah, the southern kingdom. Remember the Israel split into two kingdoms following the wars of succession after the death of King Solomon. And Israel was the northern kingdom, and Judah was the southern kingdom. Judah was smaller, but had Jerusalem as its capital and had the temple. And Uzziah was king of Judah for some people, many people's whole lifetime. He was the only king they knew. And he was, in some ways, a very, very good king. For example, he kept little tiny Judah from being overrun and captured by the superpowers of his day, Babylonia and Egypt. He kept Judah free for 52 years. This is a good, skillful king. On the other hand, he was a little full of himself. He decided he was so special, he could just march into the temple and offer incense on the altar of incense. And God said, that's not your job. I didn't say that was your job. Why are you doing that? And he did a number of things that were sinful, stupid, and questionable. So he was the kind of king that you couldn't entirely valorize him, right? But you also couldn't entirely villainize him. He was a mixture. And so the call of Isaiah that we heard this morning starts with that recognition that King Uzziah has died. In the year that King Uzziah died, says Isaiah, I saw. So the throne is empty. The throne is empty. And the people are left in this state. They can't exactly mourn a valiant king, and they can't exactly say, well, he got what he deserved because he was a villain king. They can't do either of those. They're both too extreme. And they're left with just this empty throne, and what to do with that empty throne. And it's really interesting that as that throne of Judah is empty, Isaiah is able to have this vision, this epiphany, if you will, of the King of all kings, the King of the universe, God. And the vision is very formal and, a little scary. I saw the Lord high and lifted up, and the train of his glory, the hem of his robe, filled the temple, because God's so big and tall. And this is not a casual God. Right? This is not somebody you go up to and say, "Hey, big guy, how's it going?" Not this God. It's a very, very imposing and frightening God. But Isaiah sees him on his throne. In part, is he able to because the throne he knows is empty? Is emptiness a part of the story? And Isaiah experienced himself as tiny and his people as failed, as sinful, and he discovers that although mighty and imposing and great and giant and all the rest of it, this God can forgive sins with just a thought, just a flick of a coal that angels take to his lips and blot out his sins. There's an incredible grace there. God can just forgive. And in keeping with that exalted statue, the voice goes out, not directed to anyone in particular, to who shall I send? And Isaiah says, me. Here am I, send me. And then God addresses him. And if we don't take this prophecy as a future prediction, right? Remember, prophecies are, this is the way things are going. And the prophecy itself always contains the possibility that those who hear the prophecy could decide to make a change. Right? A prophecy isn't a foretelling as much as it is a forthtelling, of naming forth the spiritual dynamics of right now. And the spiritual dynamics, keep listening but do not comprehend, keep looking but do not understand. How many times have you wrestled and wrestled and wrestled and wrestled with a problem? And it fills your thoughts, it fills your minds, it makes you worry, it keeps you awake at night, and you never get anywhere with it. We've all had that experience. And sometimes what needs to happen is we need to stop. We need to let it go. We need to be empty. Okay? Make the mind of this people dull. Stop their ears, shut their eyes, so that they may not look with their eyes and listen with their ears and comprehend with their minds, and turn and be healed. There is a turning, a changing of attitude that goes with stopping our perseverating over our problems. There's an invitation to a kind of emptiness here that allows for turning and healing. And the text goes on. He says, how long? How long? Until cities lie waste without inhabitants. In other words, till cities are empty. And houses without people, till houses are empty. And the land is utterly desolate, and the Lord sends everyone far away. The land is empty. Vast is the emptiness in the midst of the land. Emptiness. Sometimes our minds are so full, our hearts are so full that they get in the way of us having an epiphany. They get in the way, and sometimes we have to let the moment be empty. We have to ask God for a different point of view or a different perspective. We have to say, help me to be still and open my eyes, God. Show me what you want me to see, instead of all my preconceived notions and ideas. The prophecy ends by describing a cut down, burnt down oak with a stump, and the promise is the seed is in the stump. Sometimes the seed is in the emptiness. The possibility is in the emptiness. We're invited to consider that perhaps our chattering ego is kind of like King Uzziah, and we need to kick it off the throne and let everything inside us be still in order to hear what God is saying to us. A similar thing happens in the gospel. Jesus is surrounded by people who are clamoring. They're being noisy. They're clamoring to hear the word. They're clamoring to hear from him. And since they're all around him being noisy, he tells Simon, take me out a little way in the boat so I have some space from folks so I can send out a teaching. And if I'm away from them being right up close to me and being noisy, my voice will carry farther and more people can hear. The wind usually comes off the lake onto the land, so the wind will carry his voice. And so Simon takes him in his boat and he teaches, and when he finishes teaching, he tells Simon to go out into the deep and throw out your net. And Simon says, our nets are empty. We fished all night. We didn't catch anything. We worked hard all night. We didn't catch a single fish. The nets are empty. But since you said it, I'll do it. And he goes out and he throws out the net, and it is full. It is full of fish. And so full that he needs to get helpers to help him bring it into shore. And he realizes who Jesus is. Now, here's the thing. First of all, I'm not a fisherman. If you ask me, any catch is a miracle, especially if I catch something. But any catch is a miracle. God didn't need for the nets to be empty, but they needed the nets to be empty to notice God's work. If the nets had been half full, oh, well, Jesus had put out again, and yeah, we caught some more fish like we did the last time. They needed the nets to be empty in order to catch that glimpse, to have that epiphany, to have that realization of who Jesus is. They needed the nets to be empty. It's not that God needs us to be empty. I've heard people say that. You have to empty yourself out so God can fill you. No, you don't. Sometimes it's helpful to tell my ego to get off the throne so I can listen better. But God doesn't need that to work in my life. I need it to notice God at work in my life. And that's the thing about emptiness. Sometimes we need to sit still in some emptiness where we don't know the answer, we're not going to know the answer, we don't have the power to fix a single thing, and we sit there and we wait, and we might wait as short as from the time Jesus teaches till he says go out into the deep, or we might wait as long as Israel is in exile in Babylon, but we wait, and eventually a realization arises the seed blossoms that was always there but that we couldn't see. That's the value of emptiness. And it's hard. It's very hard. I want to fix and do and make things right and move forward. It's hard to sit still sometimes. It's hard to let things go. It's hard to recognize, let's be honest, it's hard to recognize that we're powerless. But that emptiness, that empty feeling, is not without hope. And what these readings tell us is that in that emptiness is precisely the home of hope. The seed is in the stump, and sometimes we need the emptiness in order to realize where God planted the seed and to see it grow. Sometimes it's embracing the emptiness that grants us the epiphany. Sometimes it's embracing the emptiness that grants us the epiphany.